Hello, it's deadline day, and we are right on the cusp of the window slamming shut. I'm Trev Downey, that's Dave Davis. This is the transfer show on Anfield Index, and it doesn't get much more relevant than tonight, Dave.
Literally, I've even got my two best gifts ready for you. I've got my Roy Hodgson, and I've got your personal favourite of ready to go. Whatever needed, it's ready to go.
Tremendous. Well, we hope. Let's get a few things out of the way very quickly. What is happening here is that the window will close during this show. As you are watching live with us. And wow, lovely to see all the eyeballs on already. Wow. Welcome to all of you. But what I will say is this: we cannot be definitive because things can still go through if what's the phrase again, Dave? The deal book is the deal sheet rather is still active. Once the thing is in motion, the actual deadline itself is sort of fluid. So you will know possibly as much as we do as we go through this. We're still waiting for the picture of Alexander in red. We're still unsure about Marc Guehi. We still not 100% on what's happening with Harvey Elliott, but we will give you the most up-to-date version that we have. And hopefully something will break live as we go. Dave, is there any real surprise in where we're starting? We're probably starting with the biggest transfer story of the entire window, because it's the Reds throwing their weights around, walking around with their willies out. Tremendous stuff. Who'd have thunk it, Dave, yesterday on the back of such a glorious moment where Dom pulls off a moment of pure cinema. We get the joy of the Isak almost dead, no, it's alive story breaking.
It was brilliant yesterday. I was at Anfield, and obviously you were buzzing afterwards. Like the cop was shaking after that Szoboszlai free quick kick, and we were just ecstatic. And then even on the way home, it's like, how long's left of the window? Are we going to get Isak done? Do you reckon? It's like, and then obviously, it's getting late, right? It's going to go down to the last day to get anything. And they all kept us waiting, didn't they? Look at that Ornstein bomber, Trev. midnight, 12:15 this morning, literally. I was trying to sleep, lads. And the best part of all this was, if anyone saw the Paul Joyce tweet, you could tell he was just angry at being woken up to have to tweet it, literally. He just
furious.
Newcastle Liverpool agreed deal. He might as well have put Newcastle and Liverpool agreed deal. Piss off, you lot, type of thing. He was not happy, you could tell, Paul Joyce in his tweet. But I mean, people have I've never heard this word come out before. 125 million to us, but the deal's worth 130 million for solidarity. And I was like, what the hell does that mean to start with? We were like, what is solidarity? Like, what, are we paying a transfer in goodwill or Klarna or something like that? So that was a bit of an investigation. But turns out that under the rules, the transfer rules, some of his old clubs get a bit of a piece of the puzzle. And ultimately, it's not a transfer request that he's handed in, but as per this agreement, Isak's agreed to waive certain loyalty bonuses, which, to be fair, let's be honest, he's been on strike for a while, so it seems fair in the grand context of things, doesn't it? It really does. But we've had the Mercedes veto. We've had everyone doing it. We are all like you, just waiting for that dopamine hit of when we get him in the kit. And for all that happens tonight, good or bad, let's just remember, as you said, we are walking around with our willies out on this one. We have dropped the dime on an elite striker. This will be epic whenever it lands.
And let's get into it a little bit, because you mentioned that thing that's out there confusing everybody. We're lucky we've got a lot of people in our combined WhatsApp group with the channel who can throw a bit of weight and expertise behind things. We had Mo and various others clarifying things for us this morning around what that solidarity stuff means. And like you say, it's basically him waiving his bonuses, which is going to save Newcastle some money. So it gets to be a sort of a window dressing for this deal. One way or another, it is all leading to, let's be honest, what has been, for me to witness, some of the most glorious mind explosions I think we've ever seen, Dave, from some of the Geordie lads. Having a go, they've decided that Liverpool fans are what they're calling E-Reds, and they are absolutely furious about the whole thing. Everything from we never liked him anyway, to compilations of all his misses being done by Newcastle fans, to we've mugged you off type stuff. It's remarkable. It is remarkable, and fair play to them. The levels of cope are spectacular, and I almost admire it. But the deal itself, Dave, let's again not underestimate this.
Nah.
It's effectively done. We know this. There's no kind of scary stories emerging at the last minute. We're just waiting for an official picture of Alexander in red. And it is a massive coup, mate. Have a look at a side-by-side photo of all the wonderful signings that have been made since the start of this window. Include Mamardashvili if you want, because he's available to us now. And it's an unparalleled window. Marc Guehi will be the cherry on top of a very, very attractive cake. You have to say, man, after all we said at the start, we were so hopeful, and it did get dragged out. But here we are on deadline day, and I think we can safely say that I can safely say I've never seen a window like it, ever.
I agree. And I think, and obviously, people, we're the same as you. We're all touching wood. We're all hoping we get good Marc Guehi news. That's the fingers crossed. But in the case that doesn't happen, it's still been a brilliant window, hasn't it? It was well beyond people's expectations that they had. And we can all drop the, but we're sure. And I'm not saying anything to do with that at all. But this is just brilliant. Like, this is an elite striker. I mean, anyone who said they knew this was happening, Trev, is lying. Anyone that said they knew at the start of the window Liverpool would go over £100 million twice is just a big fat liar. Simple as that, realistically. Like, absolutely insane, the business we've done. And as much as we're enjoying this at the moment, there is at this time, people, just something to consider. There are suggestions that Ant and Dec and Jimmy Nail have arrived at Luke Edwards' house with a fishing rod and a bag of curry and Ralmo just to keep an eye on him. So let's not rub it in too badly just yet.
do you remember when Gaza arrived with a bag of cans for a certain lad who'd lost his head? This has the same feel. And Adam Petruccione, man, you can absolutely forget purple dildos going anywhere near my ear hole. Thanks very much. But fair play. Thanks for the contribution, giving lads ideas. Again, it just feels like it's something that's worth dwelling on a little bit, Dave, because we don't want to undersell this. It's such a massive get for the club. And you know what? In the context of the win yesterday over Arsenal, the moment of brilliance from our improvised fullback, who looks like he could be a world beater in that position, the second half showing of Florian Wirtz, where he grew into the game, having really kind of, I think, given a lot of us a bit of a scare up till that point. There's so much to be optimistic about, man. There's so much to be optimistic about. And if you can fold in even Isak on 75% power, we're a scary proposition for anybody, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and obviously you want the two, not just the one today. And you're looking at it, and other teams will look at it and think, Liverpool haven't really been that great. We can be honest about that so far this season, haven't we? We've relied on individual brilliance in moments, and yet they're still 9 for 9, and they're still working it out. And you know they're going to get better. And even like you said yesterday, there was a bit of, we can play ugly like Arsenal and grind it out because that's what champions do. That's the difference between champions and second place. Now, if you stack Isak and others on top of that, what a window.
Now, you did mention that you wanted to have a little bit of a name check of ex-AI alumnus Sam Maguire. Do you want to throw in something here?
I am absolutely, after this pod, just for saying this, about to set fire to my face. But I do need to say it in all fairness, that because I've seen, as you know, there's 86 ITKs that we up to claiming this exclusive that had Isak and all that. And people had it this, and like, we've even had ITKs going, I spoke to his mum when he was an embryo when he told me he was going to start, all the claims that are coming out type of thing. But annoyingly, I have got to say it. Sam Maguire did give us or suggest this to us in November time, and it's a realistic option. And as you know, it was a unanimous like, F off. There's not a chance that is happening at all type of thing. So, yeah, his head's big enough. And now, unfortunately, he's just one giant smug bastard as we sit here, really, isn't he?
Well, it's always, I always love to hear about this. I think it's faux tension between you and Maguire. I'm a big fan of Sam, as he knows, always have been, and it's great to be able to see the through line with this story from beginning to end. We'll pivot because we've already got, I think maybe we've been asked about 7 million times about Marc Guehi in the chat panel, so it would be quite sensible for us to go there next. As you put in the notes, this deal is on a knife edge, and maybe you might explain the reasons around that for people who are just looking at headlines and wanting to know, is it or is it not? There's actually quite a convoluted reason why this has slowed down a bit. You might explain to people.
Yeah, I mean, last night, and we'll only rewind that far, you see after the game, because they have a good victory, don't they, at Villa Park Palace, and Guehi's there and he's applauding the fans, and you can see Henderson and a few of the others trying to they know what they're doing. They're pushing him closer, aren't they? Like, go and get the applause because it's the last one. And then he kind of does an awkward interview with Sky where they knew what they were doing. Like, but if this is your last game, and he's like, yeah, proud. And it sets it up nicely. And then you get Oliver Glasner's press conference afterwards where essentially he's the one that's drawn a line in the sand, hasn't he? To say, no, he can't go. It's as simple as that. We won't be able to get a quality replacement. No chance whatsoever. So then you're thinking, like, again, where does it leave it this morning? And this is where the Roy Hodgson stuff comes in a little bit, because positive Palace, they've already got Cambo, I think it is, the Toulouse boy lined up, but then they're still taught they need another senior centre half. And Igor, as it were, at Brighton, which always makes you think of Frankenstein's assistant, really, doesn't it? But he's not. He's a big centre half at Brighton. That looks like it's happening. You're thinking, brilliant. There's two. We're all good. And then all of a sudden, not that long ago, this collapses, doesn't it? A couple of hours, and we're told, no, he's now going to West Ham, where it apparently rejected them. So you're like, what the heck does that mean? And then Sky and Rob Dorsett especially come out and say, our info is, no, it's still going to go through. And then Ornstein drops the worst possible bomber about an hour ago, doesn't he? As it says on the screen there. He's undergone his medical. That's all good. But move in jeopardy amid the issues of finding an adequate replacement. This line I don't like. Talks now between the 25-year-old and Glasner to make final decision. What I don't like is, in the best possible way, Guehi's a captain, a leader, and a loyal player. We know that. And the fact that Glasner's got him in the room a little bit, it almost feels like taken, doesn't it? Or hostage negotiation a little bit. But it's the fact, unfortunately, he's actually clearly listening to him. And full well, we've seen the reports that there's tension between Glasner and Parish over this and how they both see it. I mean, genuinely, as you know, today, a few WhatsApps back and forth, different journals and different people telling us that Glasner's basically put it on the line, like keep him or I quit type of job. So that obviously doesn't work well. But at the same time, it's important to mention Glasner is one of the favourites for the new Leverkusen job, isn't he? And he's only got, like Marc Guehi, around a year left on his deal at the same time. And this is just, everyone's looking for a line into this. We are literally like anyone watching. It will probably drop at the same time you see it. For once, actually, you might get something or see something on Twitter that we aren't. We are all just literally waiting for, is Oliver Glasner, is Steve Parish going to greenlight this? Because our news is all done across the board from Liverpool and, medical to everything's done. But Palace greenlight it or they don't, Trev. And right now, bit of squeaky bum time for this one.
Well, theoretically, if we're going to go by tick, tick, tock, tock, it's 13 minutes and counting until we hear this, that, or the other. But like we said right at the start of the show, in case you missed it, these deals, if they are in train, can have a bit of wiggle room. It's not hard and fast. If there's a deal which is in progress, then it can have a little bit of wiggle room over and above the window closing. And it looks very much like we found ourselves in a situation like that because of that complication with Palace and their recruitment. And Dave, there's a little further wrinkle to it that I saw today as well. I just wanted to run this past you, see if you think there's anything to it. We're aware, aren't we, that a certain Ten Hag has lost his occupation, and Glasner would be, you'd imagine, a reasonably highly rated manager if he's working in the Premier League. He might be thinking, well, that could be a job for me. And then it's back to the parish him face off. Does he want to keep Glasner around, or does he want to keep Guehi around? What I thought was really important from what you were saying, I think it was Bill there was saying he doesn't like Guehi's silence. I think it was really important to double down on what you were saying. Guehi's character, from what we've learned, is that he seems to be a very good lad and a respectful person. And I think that's where the silence is coming from. He understands he's the captain of a club. He's not going to go around shouting his mouth off or engineering a deal. If it's being quietly done, he'll quite happily take it. And I think that's would explain his silence. But I would really worry, like you, that if Glasner gets a chance to give him the full, but you're the captain, Mark, I need you, Mark. Yeah. I think there's every chance that this stretches on till January at least, because who knows what the situation or the state of play would be then. My worst fear is that he convinces Guehi to stay and then he bolts for Leverkusen. That's the worry I would have. Any further wrinkles in this? I'm sure you've been monitoring as we go. Anything updating at all as we approach the 10 minutes away?
Yeah, I feel like, who's that tit on Sky? You know, Harvey always checks his phone while he's online and goes, I've just had a text from... No, you haven't. No, you haven't. So the latest thing, I mean, like, I'm going to sound like him, so you're just going to have to get over this, people. But Chris Williams, who is well known and well connected, that tweeted a little bit ago that actually Guehi, as we understand right now, and obviously unless something's changed, and Christ, I know I sound like Harvey with this, he's waiting for an update, but he's actually sat inside the Liverpool offices in London. That's where he is right now. Liverpool senior staff are actually down there with him in the offices because obviously the plan is for them to all travel back to London and travel back to Liverpool, isn't it? Sorry, together from London. But it's just that worry that, as you said, how hard will Guehi push, especially because he's in the last year and you've seen the reports like I have, that in the worst case, he'll wait the year and go on a free type of thing. But we want him now. And I can see that also people just giving updates as well. As long as that deal sheet is in by 7 p.m., you feel like a countdown clock, like a Vorderman off Wish.com, 2 hours to complete the deal. So if we don't get it exactly at 7, we don't panic. But yeah, with this one, I actually think it's a coin toss. I'm hoping Parish just kind of overrules Glasner a little bit. But yeah, I really don't know. I wouldn't bet either way on this, Trev.
Well, we will let this run a little bit until the end of the Liverpool section and revisit it, because there's obviously a direct contributing situation going on. We saw yesterday Joe Gomez take the field and he outstatted everybody in defence in the short period of time he was on the pitch. He was immense when he came on. Absolutely immense. Just looked like a colossus striding around the place. Brilliant. And exactly the Joe Gomez that we have seen be part of a defensive partnership that's powered to the first league title of recent years under Klopp back in 2020. That guy is as good as there is in Europe. And there was a little echo of him yesterday. And then all of a sudden we woke up to stories about Big Joe Gomez and AC Milan. Now, walk us through how that has developed, please.
I must admit, when I first saw this on Sunday morning, and I did Saturday, Daily Red, and I was like, this just sounds like one of those nonsense, last-minute rumours where people have just thrown things together and we'll see if anything comes of it, but not really believing it. And all of a sudden, it's like, no, this is real. And then everyone's talking about it, and AC Milan officials are in Liverpool. They're trying to do the deal. And it seemed pretty much that it came out unanimously. If the man on screen Guehi deal is done, Joe Gomez would depart, wouldn't he? That would be it. And we're thinking, I like the idea of 5 centre-halves or Gomez being able to cover right back, left back, and all the things he could do. I really like that. But Liverpool did seem quite happy. Now, there's a couple of things on this because I've seen different reports and had to do some digging because a few reported, as we spoke earlier, Liverpool have pulled the plug on this. Actually, not at all. Liverpool have not for 1 second pulled the plug on this. AC Milan have because of the time. In fact, Milan wanted him out. We're talking about using Liverpool's facilities, at the Spire and different places to do the medical. But Milan ultimately made the decision they wanted him back in Milan to do their full medical test because, with the greatest respect to Gomez, the injury history is pretty horrendous, isn't it? You'd want to check both knees, all the different bits, even if it is around 13 million, that 3 million that was set to get paid. So they looked at it and just realised with the time that was ticking down, they were not going to have the time to do all the medical checks they wanted. So they pulled out the Gomez deal. And in fact, I actually think they've done another one tonight already. They've got one lined up. So yeah, that's all that's really stopped Joe Gomez now being in Milan. Time.
Okay, that's remarkable. And we need to pause and analyse that for a second, because the reality there is Liverpool were more than willing, on the back of yesterday's incredible little showing and all his service, to let Joe Gomez go permanently from Anfield today with a pat on the back. And thanks, Joe, for all your endeavours and all the best in the future. Okay, that's that. Can we just lodge that there to one side for a second? Which means they were tremendously confident about the Marc Guehi deal going through. The fact that it has not now happened for Joe Gomez, and we have parallel this ongoing uncertainty around Guehi, I don't know where you are with this, but my idea was we'd look absolutely fantastic and league title winning depth if we had Joe Gomez plus Guehi. That's where I was. Way too many people are talking about this Leone kid. I was cringing for some people who keep showing pictures of a lad in his gym gear going, "Ooh, look at him, he's a unit." Would you relax? He's a child. Maybe he'll be good. Maybe he won't. Maybe he'll be immense from minute one. Maybe he won't. You do not roll the dice on that if you are looking to win a championship now and you are doing the level of recruitment we're doing to maximize Mo Salah and Alisson Becker and Virgil van Dijk. So what you do is you get plug and play merchants. That's Marc Guehi. That's Joe Gomez when he's fit to plug and play. So I'm very confused, man. I'm really confused because it looks like they were happy to go ahead with Guehi, Van Dijk, and what had until yesterday been a really unsettled Ibu Konate with only Leone and short-arse Endo as centre-half cover. Am I reading that wrong?
No, I think it's probably the best thing we can say is we obviously trust the people in charge and obviously done a brilliant job, but I think the people in charge are reading it a bit different to us because we were looking and thinking, okay, well, what about right back as well? Because Gomez can cover there and Jeremy Frimpong's just had his injury. We're also hearing Frimpong's supposed to be covering Salah, for AFCON and any potential games as well. Conor Bradley's injury record is sketchy, it's fair to say as well, isn't it? At the same time, you've also got, in certain situations, Gomez could cover at left back in an emergency, but also it would give us options if you wanted to, say, away at the Emirates, for instance, you might have him in a back four, when you end up with 3 centre-halves on the pitch. It would just give you so many options and you were covered that way. And the fact, and this sounds absolutely horrible, he didn't play that many minutes as well. So he wouldn't be as there as pressure. He's almost as a cover option, isn't he, at the same time? And it was like a Joe Gomez safety blanket who could roll back the dice or roll back the days like he did yesterday, as you said. So, yeah, I can only think, and again, this is thinking, trying to see it from the club's eyes, they do think 3 senior centre-halves, and they do obviously themselves rate this Leone kid that highly. And maybe, we can't pretend we've watched him intimately, but he's in the Italy squad, isn't he? He's been called up to the senior squad. So, it'll be interesting to see how he does there. But Yeah, and I mean, literally, I actually sound, apologies, guys, like that Cave tip, but literally, Ed Aarons has tweeted a short while ago saying Palace are expected to complete the signing of that Camvo, the young centre-half as well, before the deadline. So hopefully that will be enough as well. But I love the idea of 5 centre-halves, like you said, a collection of players, because we need to win now. We're getting all the big prizes now. I want to see Marc Guehi here, but if it is sort of next summer or January, just takes a bit of an edge off it, doesn't it?
It does. There's so many different angles I want to leave and tying them right here for the Liverpool section. And just by the way, Joseph Gerges there was wondering if I'm ever going to start a UFO podcast. It wouldn't be weird enough. Not after a summer of hearing about players, Maz, and Dave's always got some of the best ever soap opera style. It just wouldn't be weird enough. So no. We should go next to players who are hanging around before we go to a player that we're fairly certain is on his way out. But again, it's up in the air. So you've mentioned here that there was... We're fairly certain now that the likes of Dan's and Bajcetic are hanging about. But realistically speaking, do we expect either of them to feature much in first team squad?
No, it sounds like, really cruel on that. But as we said in the last show, the info's the same. Bajcetic is being kept around because of his rehab, and he's going to play the Tyler Morton role from last season, break glass in case of emergencies. There has been suggestions or links that because Jayden Dan's staying, he's going to get minutes. And no, it's basically just to conduct his rehab, and they think that's the best process and a little bit of asset protection. And if anyone's doubting that, they sent him on loan to Sunderland last season, didn't they? And, we didn't play a minute because of his injuries and back. Cade Gordon could get a loan, and I feel sorry for Cade Gordon because injuries have robbed him of his potential. And I'm not trying to be derogatory, but I think it says it all that he's potentially going on loan to Blackpool of all places. I mean, Reece Williams, people will probably forget he's still a Liverpool player in that regard. It was Morecambe last time on loan, but they obviously had all their financial issues at that. Little update, and I know I sound like that Carve tip, but it is a good one. Mike McGrath from The Telegraph has tweeted a very short while ago, deal sheet set to be submitted for Guehi, but it's still in the balance. The medical's completed. We obviously want it to happen. So the deal sheet has been submitted. So it's going past that. We're all waiting, same as that. It's just Palace have still got to green light it. But the deal sheet for Marc Guehi, so that 2-hour clock, is now ticking, people.
In terms of the surprise extra one that the greediest of us were wondering about, because there were a few people who had floated out there, that Liverpool were still thinking about maybe one extra one as well. Do you have any sort of sense, even in your wildest dreams, that there could be a little surprise at the end here? For example, we remember, don't we, there was a Rafa Leao's story, amongst others. Are you hearing anything about that extra attacker, the really fanciful one that we were all massively invested in the concept of, was Morgan Rogers? So talk to us around about any extra business before we go to Harvey Elliott.
Yeah, and maybe we were just being too greedy, don't get me wrong, but there was various outlets reported it. Sky had it as well. Mentioned Liverpool were looking at that versatile attacker, weren't they, that could play across the front line and give them real options that way. I think the most interesting thing was, everyone will know, and we'll get to the Harvey Elliott deal when we start to talk about Villa as well and other Premier League moves, but the price of that, wasn't it? And those bits, and thinking, is that going to be used as leverage? I just think because the Isak deal, as we said, has been completed so late, Liverpool never had it locked in to know what was left in the pot. They also obviously are scrambling around now, and there's official Liverpool senior staff waiting in the London offices with Marc Guehi as well. So I think, when it just got like too spread, as good as they all are, you can only multitask to a certain extent. And I think time and everything else just caught up with it.
So we should go now to the Harvey Elliott story. That seem okay to you? Let's dive into that one. But before we do, man, if we were to say the things as they stand now, and we're taking it as read because there's no stories or any hiccups around the Isak thing. We're taking it as read that that's done. We still want that picture desperately. Is this a decent window, the way things have worked out in the last minute with Joe hanging around? Are you content to roll into the season? Are you giddy to roll into the season? Does it take away a little bit if we don't have Guehi from the magnificence of the window overall? Like, just if we were to judge the window as things stand currently, allowing that Isak is a red, what is your assessment of that window?
Oh, I think more than content. Right now, the best analogy I can use is this is when I first discovered things like FHM and Maxim magazine when I was a bit younger. If we get Guehi, this is when you first found things like Pornhub and discovered college ed dorm party searches and things like that. This is like literally, you've got to be honest. This is beyond people's wildest dreams on this. Honestly, anyone who stacked up, and I'd just call them a liar to their faces, who said, in this window, we're going to get Isak, a top striker, Florian Wirtz, who everyone in Europe's afterwards, Ekatike, was the option who you thought would probably lead it, but, we don't know, could be even the backup, the alternate left, we'll have to see. You'd get Kirkes, you'd get Frimpong, Marmadash, all those signings, and the amount we spent, which is just atypical of anything else FSG had done before. Anyone who said they knew that was happening is just an absolute liar, straightforward as that. The only good news just coming in, which I hope will play a key part, and I'm hoping can bring Glasner down from the ledge type of thing, is Cambo has been confirmed for Palace. So he is a Palace player. They have got one centre-half at least now. And I know you love a Mercedes Vito story as well. Sky and others are filming it. And Mercedes Vito has just pulled up outside Liverpool's offices in London. So everyone's like, who's getting out? Who's getting in? Give me the Vito latest.
I had you more as a Nuts magazine kind of guy, to be honest with you. But hey, it's all beautiful images one way or the other. Let's get to the Harvey Elliott stuff if we could, Dave, because everyone's going to want to know what's happening there. Oh, super chatter. Thanks, Joseph. Much appreciated.
Yeah, I was looking. I was thinking, you sent us a sticker, Joseph. I was waiting for your question. So if you are, ask me more about the facts of life, I'll tell you on another show. But for this one, I suppose because we can kind of face in a little bit to what's going on in the Premier League now, because Harvey, we're waiting for that confirmation alone, because we know about Villa's PSR, UEFA issues, their cost ratios and all that. It's a season-long loan, Trev, with a buy obligation. And the suggestions are the buy obligation is 35 million quid. Now, we've been hearing all summer, Harvey Elliott is 40 with a buyback clause or 50. And Liverpool have based that in the marker on the sand from the likes of Amari Hutchinson, haven't they? And others doing that type of deal. So that's a little bit weird. We're thinking, and of course, like us, we were like, please let that be a nice smoother for Morgan Rogers, but it doesn't look like anything's happened on that just now. But Villa have been insane. They tried for Lucas Paqueta, didn't they? That one yesterday, but he scores, he kisses the badges, says, I'm going nowhere after trying to do that deal, which was funny because just for the record, we had clearly that Paqueta had asked West Ham to let him go. So there he is kissing the badge a few hours later. So just keep that in mind for the way footballers do it. Jadon Sancho as well, haven't they? They've got him on loan. United have finally got rid of one of the bomb squad there. So that's quite interesting at the same time. They've also got Victor Lindelof, the former United defender, on a free. So they managed to get him. It doesn't look like they've got Emiliano Martinez off their books as well, didn't they? Because that was another high earner, unless something's going to break on a deal sheet that way as well. So, we were all hopeful. And we can be honest on this. Liverpool clearly have an interest in Morgan Rogers. And you thought that Harvey move, that's going to be a nice little smooth over that way. But it doesn't turn out to have been the case in this one. And then you go, another Carve quick one for you as we're talking. Sky Sports News are saying both clubs are still giving the official briefing right now. The Marc Guehi deal is expected to happen. So that's the latest there.
Yeah, I've just got a text from Harry Redknapp.
How it's went down.
Yeah, do you mind rewinding there and clarifying for folks what's going on? Because I know we're going to get the question about 7 million times if we don't clarify it. So the loan with an obligation to buy, that allows for PSR to be massaged in the short term, and it allows Liverpool to take some money on the long term. That's question number one, if you wouldn't mind just clarifying that for people. And question number two is, did we not have a much higher book value in our heads for Harvey Elliott, and why has that changed?
Yeah, to both, in simple terms. It felt like we were allowing Villa to do a deal that they wouldn't pay anything now for Harvey Elliott, so that would help with their PSR. And then everyone hoped we would agree like a 70, 80 million move, for Morgan Rogers. So that would, help with their PSR figures as well. And that's why it's all been loans or free moves for Villa. So that was hoped for, but it's not happened. And then, it is still a little bit like there's just this wonderment. Have we given Villa Harvey a little bit cheap just because we want a good relationship for Morgan Rogers January or next summer? That's just it's the one thing people are thinking, aren't they? Because they just can't quite work out, okay, you've deferred it for a year for Villa, season loan with the obligation, we get that. But why 35 million? Why have you given Aston Villa a discounted price?
Huge amounts of people have that sum done in their heads, that there's some sort of gentleman's handshake has been done over Morgan Rogers for next summer. Let's see. There could be nothing to that. There could be something to that. I think people are trying to justify the amount in their heads when they see what some other players have gone for, Dave. It is a weird one because he is a Premier League proven talent. And it's, I think, very hard for some people to get their heads around why Liverpool don't believe he can be a Premier League talent with them. And that's not really for you to answer or me to answer. That's an Arne Slot call. If Jurgen Klopp was still at the club, we wouldn't be having this conversation, and everybody knows that. So these are the things that happen when you get different people who are making those calls in terms of personnel. You've started us on our Premier League trip via Villa and Monchi. And let's go to United now, because you already touched on Emi Martinez. Wasn't it United that were having a quick look at him? But they seem to have signed a Belgian in the interim, which is probably a good idea given the performance we saw the last day. And what is this Kobbie Mainoo thing? I thought he was the up-and-coming next biggest thing. And all of a sudden, he doesn't seem to have any favour at the club at all.
What I love is now happening. Do you remember we said at the start of the show, as we're talking, people would join like 10 minutes behind and they'll just repeat what we say. In the chat panel, everyone's like, a deal sheet has been submitted. You can now go to 9 o'clock. Like we said that about 12 minutes ago, but I love that everyone is now chatting amongst themselves. So if you are coming in late and you have missed it, Marc Guehi has a deal sheet, so it can go up till 9 o'clock, but Palace have got to green light that. That's the key thing there. But as Miguel Delaney's tweeted as well, the optimism is there because the deal sheet's gone in. It's just the final bit. And for this one, this is another one that we got the here we go from Fabrizio, but it's not been official yet, or United haven't announced it unless it's, happened since we started, but expected that they get this young Belgian in because all their keepers are hopeless, really, aren't they? Despite the amount they spent on them, that Onana and the other guy just absolutely stinking. And at the same time, United they've taken a massive hit on Anthony. He's gone to Betis, hasn't he, last minute with a loan fee? And I think the total value of the deal is like 20 million quid or something like that, which, considering they bought him for 90 million, wow. What a loss that is. And then the other one is, even up to the deadline, Kobbie Mainoo was trying to leave, wasn't he? But he asked 3 times, is our info. They just wouldn't let him go.
Yeah. At some stage, I think we'll probably do one of these. I'm springing this on you now, Bud, but I think we should do one of these as a kind of a, when everything has settled, the dust has settled,
Yeah,
we should do an assessment of everybody's business. I thought that would be a really interesting show,
100%.
just to list out all the business that has been done and just walk through it in terms of our ideas on it. And I think we'll need one more anyway. We've been sort of hitting the old vein so much over the summer. We'll get it hard to leave this show. But if we move away from United and on to some of the other bits and bobs around the place, Sunderland you flagged up as a club doing a few little bits as well, including an ex-Arne Slot player, I believe.
Yeah, fair play to Sunderland. They've spent big money, and even on deadline, they're having a right go at this. And they've won a few games already in the Premier League, haven't they? And Gertrude, yeah, a player that we were linked with, weren't we, or had a good look at when Arne Slot came from Feyenoord, first of all. So, I mean, they got him for a loan fee and a buy option. I think that's a brilliant move for Sunderland to get him there. They've also got Brian Brobbery, the former Ajax, former Red Bull, which, again, I'm not saying it's a player Liverpool would be interested in, but I think you've just got to put it in context. Sunderland have got promoted, and now, as people are suggesting, with Xhaka as well on top, I think it's around the 200 million mark they've spent. So you can't argue that they haven't had a go, and they've won 2 of their games so far. I think it's just going to be interesting this year. But Sunderland, for me, look like one that will stay up. It doesn't have the feeling of last year, when all 3 promoted teams were just absolutely hopeless. They've had a real go, but Sunderland, especially today, proper led the charge on this one.
Yeah, it's good to see, actually. It is good to see. And we go from Sunderland, who are, like, maybe surprising people with their business, to City, who have had a fairly miserable start. I don't like the way everyone's writing them off. I think that's really dangerous stuff. But I will say the business that I'm seeing here is mostly outgoing, with the exception of the goalkeeper situation. Is this Donnarumma thing going to happen at the death? And does it make sense for them to let Akanji go? A lot of people were wondering why we weren't sniffing around Akanji. I was like, because it's City and they're not going to sell anyone to us. And Gundogan is also, having been brought back to patch up a midfield, is off on his bike again. So a few bits and bobs, but let's start with the Donnarumma one, because that's fascinating. And I haven't heard what the status of that one is lately.
That is, as far as we're aware, we're probably waiting for a deal sheet like everyone else, or confirmation. But he is in Manchester. We know all that much. He's travelled over, so it's all expected to happen for big money. Edison is on his way, or was on his way earlier, to Turkey. So again, that is expected to correlate. We're just waiting for an announcement on that. I think the one thing people are just struggling to get their heads around is Edison is the best keeper with his feet, isn't he? Zero doubt about that in the world. The other things is Alisson across the board. Zero doubt about that as well. Donnarumma, for all his attributes, isn't the best with his feet. And you saw yesterday that James Trafford, didn't you? Almost picked his pocket a few times. So I just wonder how Donnarumma, especially getting used to the Premier League and the pace and all that, goes into the mix. But it looks like City are doing this one. Akanji, again, we're waiting to go on loan to Inter. That's, again, should expect to be completed. Funniest one was, there was a Turkish account that when Gundogan has fallen through, so all City fans were like, oh, we thought that had happened. And it turns out it's run by a Fenerbahce fan, because then a Galatasaray fan 5 minutes later put it up to say, oh, here he is with the Galatasaray shirts. They were just winding you up. So we're all expecting, again, the official announcement that way. The only thing to say is, and people are just tweeting this saying, Guehi's just been confirmed. Just to be clear, the deal sheet's been submitted. That does not mean Crystal Palace have rubber stamped it just yet. And John, this is the funniest one. You'll love this, Trev, on one of our last transfers. John Maicester, why are you talking about other clubs' transfers? I thought this was a Liverpool channel. I'm guessing, John, you haven't caught the 8,742 other shows we've done, and the format. But yes, just I'm afraid we do here Premier League and Europe, because we're that generous at the same time.
John's been hanging around that chat for show after show. He knows exactly what we're doing. He's on the wind up, as I'm sure is Mr. Fireburn there with his hoping he'll get us to shout about it because until we see it in any way confirmed officially, we won't be jumping across any fences and getting excited. Let's just do a bit of a wrap up then. One of the interesting ones for me was Spurs. I think they've handled themselves quite well in this window, and there's a feel to Spurs I don't like, Dave, under this new manager. They might finally have cracked it. And the signing of Muani is a good one. You know, he's a highly rated player. Wasn't he on loan at Juve from PSG last year? And something like a goal or assist in 50% of his matches. And that's not a bad old thing. Raheem Sterling is a kind of forgotten man of the Premier League. You've got a story about him. And we've also got at least one Brentford story. So wrap up the best of the rest for us.
Yeah, literally Muani, that's, you know, pretty much done again. We're waiting for an official confirmation. So they're interesting, Spurs. They've got a lot of attackers in, haven't we? And how they all gel together, because they've looked good in certain games. They did well in the Super Cup, even though they lost to PSG. But in true Spurs fashion, they lost at home to Bournemouth in the weekend, didn't they? So you just still don't know what Spurs you're going to get. It'll be interesting to see how he gets on. Raheem Sterling. I mean, can you remember when he was the sort of super kid once upon a time? High and dry, Trev. No one's taken him. Fulham looked at it, but they've even picked young Tyreek George instead, haven't they? So that's been done. Reece Nelson, the youngster from Arsenal, he's at Brentford. We're waiting that to be confirmed. Apparently, I haven't got it with me and I can't check my phone, but the deal sheet list is out now, people. So feel free to chuck it in here if you get it. You know, when they get a list of who's in the 2-hour window now for extra time. So we haven't got it right now, but that deal sheet list is out and Sky have published it, apparently, and others. So if you've got it, feel free to chuck some names in here.
Absolutely. And Gibbo's doing that for us. So if you could, Eddie, if you've got the wherewithal to give us a few names in the chat there, that'd be great. In terms of those last couple of stories, the Sterling one's interesting. You mentioned that last story, Reece Nelson to Brentford. As you look around, Dave, the rest of the Premier League, there are some very interesting deals. But one that's been mentioned there in the chat panel as one I wanted to drop on you here at the end was we all know about Newcastle and their search for strikers, and they got the 9-foot lad in there recently, and that's great. And then all of a sudden, I was hearing a story this morning about Asula leaving the club. So I'm sorry, but is that not mental? What? I thought they were trying to accumulate strikers, and all of a sudden, Asula was leaving the club, and he wasn't going on loan. What I was hearing was a story about a permanent move. So that leaves me wondering: is the Visa thing not dead? Is that one of the deals that's gone through? Oh, it is. The deal sheet is in, buddy, and their Visa is one of them. Okay, sorry, talk us through that, please, if you don't mind.
Visa is absolutely one of the deal sheets. But yeah, this whole Asula thing, and he scored against us as well, didn't he? Do you remember he's the lad that made it 2-2? And we were all sat there going, you absolute bunch of Geordie lying bastards. You had a striker all along, one that was valued around the 30 million mark. You were just absolutely milking this. And obviously it's backfired. They didn't get what they wanted. But yeah, it looks like this one's fallen through. And this sounds terrible. Eintracht Frankfurt, who we're going to play on the Champions League, have probably seen sense because Asula was bought for practically nothing, I think about 10 million. So to give them 30 million or around that mark would have seemed crazy. So yeah, that's absolutely not happened. But just to give you a few names of the deal sheet, Jackson, Bayern, Lamens, the keeper we mentioned, United have put in for him. Harvey, Elliott and Jadon Sancho for Aston Villa. You know about Guehi for us. Donnarumma and Edison are both on deal sheets. One that have gone completely quiet, Trev, Incape. Do you remember that just seemed to be like certain and gone that way as well? Buwani, as we said, just looking through if there's anything really interesting. All names that are quite interesting. Traore is mentioned there for Sunderland. I wonder if that's the baby-oiled assassin. That would be a hell of a move, wouldn't it, really? I don't know if that is the case. Igor, the centre-back who pied Crystal Palace from Brighton, looks like he's a deal sheet with West Ham. So there is a really, really interesting one there. And Akanji, we mentioned him, Inter, that looks like it's going to go to the deadline as well. So, yeah, even in this next, hour and 37 minutes, there's a lot of deals are on a knife edge.
Can I just say how utterly disconcerting it is that on the deal sheet that we've got there, it says Isak, Guehi to Liverpool. Don't like that. Don't like it. Don't like it being there. It's making me uneasy. Let's get around Europe and see if there's anything else going on. Now, we obviously talked about Milan briefly because they had tried for Joe Gomez and decided in the end not to go for him, thinking him too high of a risk if they couldn't do the full test they wanted to do in time. But there are some other bits going on around Milan as well.
Yeah, it was. They even tried a striker swap at the last breadth almost of it, where Dovbyk, I think it's pronounced, the Ukrainian forward at Roma, was going to move to Milan, and Jimenez was going to move across the other way, like a player swap, obviously with money involved, but they would do that. But Rafaela Pimenta, Mino Raiola's protege, she was in charge of that and said, no, it's staying. It didn't happen. But the suggestion is mainly because the money wasn't right for all parties, so that's not happened. You'll like this. Who also were Milan speaking to on the last day? Veronique Trev, the one who likes a straightener on the cobbles. Rabiot's Marc was talking to AC Milan. Now, it's interesting that he's not on the deal sheet there that's been put in, but he got a here we go from Fabrizio for this earlier. So I know Marseille were trying to get that deal. Maybe, just maybe, I've got visions of Veronique having a straight punch-up with 8 customs officers at Milan airport right now or something like that. Completely possible. And yeah, Joe Gomez, there is, I can't remember his name, but they have brought in a young defender because Gomez, in case you missed it, they wanted to do a detailed medical for obvious reasons because of Gomez's history. Didn't have enough time to do it, so moved away from that and have brought in a young defender.
Yeah, Veronique has been the spirit animal of this show all summer, and long may her reign continue. 2 other stories to finish with. We'll start with a funny one. Well, I mean, it's funny or it's tragic. It depends on what way you're looking at and at what end you're at what end of the story you're at. There's so many precious little people on my Twitter timeline that get all upset about everything for everybody. One of them was getting all upset about Jackson. The Jackson to Bayern story. Talk to us about Chelsea and what they did here, because most people perceive this as absolute, just the worst kind of behavior from that club.
I don't think we've ever seen anything like this, and we've seen a lot in these shows. I think it's the first time I've ever seen a "here we go again" tweeted that way as well. I mean, he's on the plane, he lands, and literally as he lands, he does all the photos. And Liam Delap's got injured earlier in the day, hasn't he? He's walked off, with a hamstring injury. So there were suggestions, and people were like, "Nah, that won't make a big difference." But yeah, Chelsea obviously pull the plug and say, no, he's not going. Now, do you remember Odin Wingy when he rocked up in the car and got told, no, it's not happening, and he had to turn around? It just shows how much the market has changed now that Ali Barat, the super agent who's pioneered this, and Jackson's agent, Diamanti Kamara, used to play for West Brom and Fulham many moons ago, are just like, nah, we're not turning around. We're doing this deal. And then Ebrel's after the game, isn't he, saying, well, we're going to have to speak to, we'll all just sleep on it and see how we get on type of thing and go from there. And then all of a sudden, it's, no, I want to stay, and he's being told he's got to go back. But Chelsea have looked at this and all of a sudden have gone, hold on, we can get Marc Guehi, is it pronounced, back from Sunderland on loan. And actually, the better option is to do that and leverage even more cash off Bayern Munich. So the loan fee's actually gone up to 16.5 million euros and an obligation thrown into the mix. So for all the absolute chaos that's gone into this, you've actually got to say Sweeney Todd and the boys have played this beautifully at the end, haven't they? And they've actually got an even better deal. And also, it just sums up the window and how bad it's been for Bayern Munich, getting rejected by Wirtz and about 800 other left wingers before, probably in the nicest way at market metrics, overpaying a little bit for a 28-year-old Luis Diaz. I know we'll do well there, but Bayern's aims are obviously in the Champions League, aren't they? So that comes into the mix. It's just been a really bad summer there. But whatever we think of Chelsea, and we obviously think a lot of things about Chelsea, but they give entertainment for the show. Along with us, they have been the best sellers of the summer. And there you go. That's a great message there by Vinny Patel. Chelsea have spent 330 million, but have recouped 312. And for once, I don't think they've bought the Chelsea pensioners or the table tennis second 11 team again as well. I think it's like proper deals that way.
As you say, from when we started this show, they've been tremendous value. And when you see a stat as stark as that, like my hat is stuck because of my earphones. Otherwise, I would doff it. To be fair, that is impressive. And let's wrap it up then, Dave, with our current story before we sort of revisit everything. Because a lot of naysayers have crept into the chat. The doom mongers are amongst us. But let's go to Newcastle, because you have already talked about how they sort of did a number on us with Asula and Frankfurt. We've touched on this, but let's just wrap it up and get the details of that one.
Yeah, I mean, they played it. And overall, as bad as their window's been with Eddie Howe's nephew and all that, and, you know, they missed out on the Asula books, you know, so far. If, as expected, happens, Isak departs, who didn't want to be there, and they get in Visser. They've got in Giant Wolfgang, Jacob Ramsey. I would suggest for Newcastle, total by fluke, because they missed out on 900 other targets. That's not bad business. It would have been a really great day for them if that Asula one had gone through, hadn't it? But that's collapsed last minute. So, yeah, for everything that's happened with the Geordies, and I think the one thing that we're excited about with this show, we don't have to keep an eye on Newcastle's transfer business anymore, hopefully, do we? We can just literally delete them from our memory bank. So they are not a well-run club, Newcastle, but just the ending, and people are going to shout at me for this because they'll say, oh, Visser, a year left, 55 million, and I get that. But with the Isak money, the two forward, Jacob Ramsey, I would suggest it's not the worst ending for them.
No, it's far from it. It's far from it. And if they can't make something of the season on the back of that, then, you know, maybe they need to revisit a few of the basic things that we've talked about. Like maybe there's a better manager to take them forward. Who knows? Let's just leave it at that. Look, we're getting towards the top of the hour. I know Gibbo will be delighted for us to stay on until the deal sheet window is over. But as things stand, we are no wiser. There's a rumor of an Isak image doing the rounds, but that's only a rumor. We are no wiser on whether we actually have Marc Guehi over the line or not. As we sit, is there anything left that you want to throw out there in this particular show? Anything that's come to your attention in the last couple of minutes or over the course of the show that you want to fit into the agenda just before we wrap it up?
No, to be fair, we've tried our best to do the sort of carve tit head type of updates as we've got them, you know, in that regard. But it is interesting. We talked about the three confirmations left, and all three, as it stands, are on a deal sheet, aren't they? Isak, Guehi, Harvey, Elliott. So Liverpool are now in the 2 hour window. When I say 2 hour window, 1 hour 28 as it stands to get those done. The smart money says now, obviously 9 o'clock at the earliest, but then there's going to be press and all that. So we are waiting with bated breath, people, the same as you, any second now, or up to 9 o'clock or even past 9 o'clock, what is happening with these three players. Same as you, it's fingers crossed and see what happens.
Hang on, I've got a text here from Harry Redknapp. Yeah, he knows fuck all as well.
Yeah.
So we're all just waiting. Hopefully these things get done. I'm not going to promise you that there'll be content. There he goes. I've been waiting for that. Hopefully these things get done. We're not going to promise you there's going to be immediate content if they do get done. But at the same time, you can be fairly sure that we'll be all over it as a channel if we can see a picture of Isak in red and Marc Guehi ends up as a red as well. For now, we're still in the dark about Harvey Elliott leaving too. But let's just wait and see. We'll look forward to the wrap-up show, which Dave and I will do, looking back at the business of the entire window with the sort of perspective of everything being done and dusted. Dave, for an absolutely brilliant summer of bringing information to us, I have to say, savage shift by you, gathering all this, making all those phone calls. I understand the effort that goes into it, and it has been a joy to do the show. Tremendous fun. And I look forward to, like I say, the wrap-up one. For now, you'd have to say Liverpool have gone balls out. They have got their willies out all summer, and hopefully we'll get over the line with a bit of fun towards the end. Any last words from you, sir?
What a summer. To be honest, I'm ready for the season to end after 3 games now already. It's just been that much going on, hasn't it, over this period? But, yeah, like you, even with all the drama that's been going on for months, we are still at the last minute. It's just, for me, this has been a deadline day for the ages because they've been pretty naff in recent years, haven't they, across the board? This has been a proper old school deadline day. Let's just hope we come out on the right side of it.
Absolutely, right down to keeping us going past the frickin' deadline, the big drama queen of a thing. Thanks to Dave. I've been Trev. We'll be back with you soon.